implementation plan. And we did that and we submitted it and it was approved by Treasury. As of October of last year, Pasco County had 989,000 in unobligated funds for pot one. Here are some of the projects that we vetted and submitted to Treasury, and our older members, our members who have been with us for a long time can remember the process that we went through. It was quite a lengthy process. I can't take credit for that. That was Curtis Franklin who did all that work, and of course our committee members, and narrowed down a lengthy list of projects based on the criteria and what we felt, or the committee felt, would be in the best interest of the county. So here are some of the projects that, these are the projects that were submitted for pot one funding.
Hey, Pam, just for a second. You've got on the channel restoration, the 1.4, didn't that come from pot 3?
No.
That was pot 1.
That was pot 1. That was the Cruise Lake project.
That would be pot 3.
That's pot 3.
Okay.
The channel restoration. I'm not sure which, I think you guys
That's right, I'm sorry.
State expenditure funds for that project.
That is correct. I apologize.
Okay.
It's a pot 3 project, not a pot 1.
Right, okay, so forget the channel restoration. We'll get to that a little bit later. So the Key Vista Shoreline project, that is ongoing, and that is one of Curtis's projects. The Port Richey waterfront improvement, that is also ongoing. We are in the process of, we have revised the original application, and it has been resubmitted to Treasury, and it is going through the review process right now. The school board restoration, same thing, that's in process. That will be submitted probably next week to Treasury, and I don't see any problems with that moving forward. Orange Lake and Sunwest Park improvements are both completed. Pot 2. This pot is managed and overseen by the Department of Environmental Protection. In order to qualify for funds from this pot, you have to have a project that DEP is interested in that will fit in their comprehensive plan. To date, we have not been awarded any money from pot 2. And I'm not sure, I mean, we can certainly go after pot 2 and apply for it whenever you want, but it's not an easy process. DEP has certain things that they want to accomplish, and it's, like I said, within their comprehensive plan. So that one is kind of one that we haven't really tried to take advantage of yet. And here is some of the criteria for that. Very similar to what the criteria is for pot 1. And then here are the 5 priority approaches that DEP has set. And that's, again, if you look at them, we could probably fall in there somewhere with some of our projects, but overall it has to fit into their comprehensive plan, the project that we submit. Pot 2, well, they developed the FPL, and it's developed in 2 phases, 3A and 3B, and they just finalized 3B. Here's the money that is in pot 2 right now, and there's currently 305,000 plus available. And these are some of the projects that they have done or are in the process of working on. So you can see that they're large projects, they're not small piecemeal, they're, you know, like the resiliency program. They want that for the whole, not just Florida, everywhere. Pot 3. this is another pot that we have access to and that we have applied for money and have been awarded some money. This pot is overseen by the Restore Council, and the members include the Secretary of Interior, the Army, Commerce, Agriculture, EPA, the head of the Coast Guard, and governors of the Gulf states. These funds go towards developing science-based projects that also fit into a comprehensive plan. And that plan is to restore and protect the natural resources of the state. In order to obtain the funds, we had to develop a state expenditure plan, otherwise known as the SEP. And we put all of our projects into that plan for Pasco County, and that went to the council ultimately, and it was approved by council. In order to bring any new projects in, we would have to make an amendment to that plan and resubmit it for approval. Here's a list of what they are looking for in these projects to restore and protect the natural resources, ecosystems, fisheries, marine and wildlife, beaches, coastal wetlands, and the overall economy of the Gulf Coast. Okay, so I already said that you have to, if you want to add any more projects and get money from pot 3, you have to look at the projects that you have now currently, because we have all of our pot 3 money earmarked. So we have to look at them and see if there are any projects that are currently in the SEP that we would want to either withdraw or cut the budget or something to put another project in its place. And then we would have to submit that amendment back to the council, and they would have to review it and approve it. So as of October of last year, we had $1.4 million unobligated in pot 3. And the reason we had that $1.4 million is because one of the projects that the committee approved and passed up to ultimately Restore Council was withdrawn. And that was the Cruise Lake project. So that left $1.4 million unobligated for us to go after.
I want to come.
Is that the same 1.4 million that you had in the other slide?
Yes.
So it's been reobligated and there's no available funds right now?
Correct. Thank you. I was getting there.
Okay.
Anyway, oh look, it's on this list too. Channel restoration. That is the project that we did, the county did a study with GBA, the consulting firm, and determined, came to the conclusion that there was a lot of work that could be done that would fit under pot 3. And since we only had 1.4 million, that's what we requested. Now, this channel restoration is for Gulf Harbor's channel and Hudson channels. Okay, so that 1.4 million will no longer be available to us. The application has been submitted. I think we probably talked about this in past meetings. It was reviewed by our consultant, then sent on to the Gulf Consortium, and then the Gulf Consortium approved it last week, the amendment to the SEP, and now it is sitting with the Restore Council. We expect that the Restore Council is going to approve the project, and we should see, hopefully, money by the end of April.
If I could, Pam, just add a point of clarification. The person, Marshall Amano, who spoke at public comment from Leisure Beach, Signal Cove and Leisure Beach are also part of this project that we've got submitted with Hudson and Gulf Harbors. It's all one and the same. It's not really separate. It's not separate. So just to be clear.
Okay.
If that project falls under the 1.4 million?
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
Here is a list of the projects that are being done or are going to be done in the future. Pot 4 is a pot, again, that we don't have access to. This pot is reserved for NOAA to do these projects that they have listed up there. They're receiving 2.5% of the overall money. This is the type of work that they're doing in pot 4. This is more of the work that they're doing. And as of fiscal year 2021, last October, they had $6.75 million available to them to accomplish those projects. There's a couple of them. Pot 5, same thing. This pot is for the Centers of Excellence. We don't really have access to that either. They've received the 2.5% plus 25% of the interest of the money that was awarded to them. There are some of the projects that they are working on. Another list of who they work with, which is universities mostly, education. He's my wingman, by the way. Curtis knows all there is to know about Restore. And as of yesterday, 2 days ago, this is the amount of money that they still had available to them in their pot. That's one of the projects that they're doing. So basically, and again, I'm not going to read all this to you. If you want a copy of any of this, just let me know. You do? Okay.
Yep.
I will forward it to you in an email. These are the priorities and goals of Restore. The type of work that they would like to see done with the projects that we bring to them. That's more of the priorities. And that's the end. Any questions?
It's a good presentation. I think if you get it to all board members, probably very helpful for all of us.
Okay.
And yeah.
Please, by all means, because like I said, you know better than I do.
I'm Curtis Franklin, Parks and Recreation. The easy way to remember the pods are actually very simple. Pot 1 is money that was directed here to the county. Those are projects that you guys have already pretty much selected. You've seen the two older members of the group here. They use their words.
Longer serving.
That's the longest serving, the senior board members. There you go. It's pot 1. So that's direct here to the county. That's a county's allocation. Treasury is using the grant format, but that's money that's solely dedicated to our county. Can't go anywhere else. So it's almost like a guaranteed grant, which is a rarity in the world. You just got to get through the federal requirements to get it. Pot 2, easiest way to remember that, pot 2 is your federal money. That's the money that goes up to all 5 states are competing for that particular money. They're looking for very comprehensive, well put together projects. An example of that would be we have multiple projects on the Pittsburgh-Chascody River, for example, where you got the Cruise Lake cleanup, and then you had the Madison Street cleanup, and you had Orange Lake cleanup, and you had dredging that you want to do out there, and you take all those and you put them into one big giant project, and that's the kind of projects that they're looking for. Very big, very large, comprehensive ones. Very hard to qualify because DEP is the key holder for the state to those particular projects. Okay, and then pot 3 is the other one. That's again guaranteed money, thanks to Commissioner Mariano and the work of Gulf Consortium and one in particular meeting that we had where we went and said, hey, this isn't fair. You guys are getting all the money. So they made an agreement to evenly split the money out. That happened about 1.5 years ago. There's about $13 million that's in there. Each of the 23 counties along the Gulf Coast of Florida is getting an even share of that. That's again, our money. We went through this huge process where we did the state expenditure plan and said, these are the projects we want to use that money up on and put that list together. And other than the one that they've switched out for the $1.4 million for Dredge, we're moving forward with that. Reef will be going in, by the way, in 2 months or less. Okay. So we will have a new reef out there. Yeah. So that's the easy way to remember it. State is 3, federal is 2, local here right at the county is 1. And the ones that you guys are primarily concerned with are going to be pot 1 and pot 3. Those are the lists. Those are the projects that are brought forward. That's it. Good job, by the way. She did good.
Thank you.
And just so you know, Curtis was here from the get-go. Curtis did such a great job getting this whole program started. He started doing so much great information. He started disseminating it to the rest of the council members, the 23 counties. So good that we had the first project ability submitted, first one approved, and you can see we got 2 of them done already. So we're very highly respected thanks to a lot of Curtis efforts, and we're very happy Pam's taken over and doing a great job with that too. So future's bright. All right, so you want to go over, did Project SASO go over scoring criteria stuff? Pretty much.
Please take your seats there. A list of the projects that were selected, the status of those projects, and cost 1 and cost 3, and the scoring criteria that was used. I want to make sure he's not leaving because it was Curtis who came up with and developed the scoring criteria. So that's basically at one sheet, the landscape sheet with the table on it. That says pot 1, but it's actually the same criteria. Okay, it's actually the same criteria that was used for both pot 1 and pot 3. Okay, so that just gives you an idea of what the committee used to rank all of the projects that were submitted, and there were many. How many were there?
Oh, God.
Was there like
So many.
So we had, I think it was 36 projects that we went through overall and ranked. And for the most part, we've addressed almost every single one of those. There's only a few out there that haven't had funding or haven't had something done with each and every one of those. When you look at the scoring criteria, I know it's a little scary, but if you look at the scoring criteria and you go back and look at the slides that you just saw, those criteria for usage on each and every one of those pots that says, hey, you gotta evaluate this to make sure it falls in it. That's where that scoring criteria came from. We just took the act and made that into scoring criteria, and that's what we did. And then we added a couple things like the size of the impact. We tried to estimate, is it going to affect 500 people, or is it going to affect 5,000 people? Is it going to affect 50,000 people? And the higher that was going to affect from then, the higher the score was. The criteria for pot 1 and pot 3 are almost identical because, once again, if you go look at the act, the scoring criteria is almost identical. So, that's all we did. We broke it down. You tally them at the end. High score wins. That's supposed to be your first one to funding, and then you guys fight it out if that's what you agree with and make a recommendation. So,
Curtis, before you go, so let me say, as we got started on this is like a brand new thing that's never been done before. Not even the other 4 states have anything like this. Florida's the only one that took the 23 counties mostly affected and put this all together. When we set this up, we wanted to make sure we were following every detail. Everybody was really concerned that you want to make sure when you do your research, et cetera, that you were going to follow to what the intent of everything was. What we're finding is, even with just one of our projects right now, as long as it meets one of these criteria, it qualifies. So as we go through, and if we're going to rescore these things and retake a look at them again, it's still going to be something for us to base this on, but then we can still decide what we want to make a recommendation. Our recommendation goes to the Board of County Commissioners who make the final decision. So just kind of keep in mind as a multi-step process, but at the same time, this criteria I think was fantastic when we did it. It really isolated what was going on. I think we made good selections. We may look at things a little bit differently if we have a few other things, as some other opportunities have come up that weren't really going as strong as they are right now.
If I may, the other reason we came up with the scoring criteria we did was a couple factors. One, this was all happening in 2013, 2014. I kept these three here in particular away from their families many, many nights to put that all together and everything else. But the rules weren't set yet, so we didn't know how it was going to be executed, so we were trying to make sure we got way down into the weeds. The other driving factor behind that was when we did the scoring criteria, we knew we could move projects up, we could move projects down, and based on when the money was going to come. So the one thing that I didn't see in the presentation that I wish I would have said something when I reviewed it was that the money doesn't come all at once for Restore. Okay, the money's split over a full course of 15 years. BP comes in every single year and they pay, I think it's $300,000 to our county is what we get every single year. So it's going to take a course of another 10 years before we see that entire $6 million that BP is going to end up allocating to us. So we were able to plan for that a little bit and do this that way as well. And yeah.
I will say the criteria was extremely helpful because of the large number of projects that we had to look at. And we had to have some way to try to separate out the projects that would have the biggest impact, and the scoring criteria definitely helped us with that.
Yep. And then you just you take the projects, you look at the funding that you have and say, hey, I can't do this number one project that's $6 million or $3 million because it's going to take me 10 years to allocate the funding up to that point. So let's go down the pot a little bit and find something we can do. Oh, look, we can do Orange Lake. We can do Sun West. We can do the Port Richey waterfront because that's the money that we had. So that's that's why, even though those weren't number one, number two, number three ranked, it was a recommendation of the board, the Restore Act Advisory Committee at the time to take that to the Board of County Commissioners. The Board of County Commissioners approved that. So that's kind of how that all developed. So your number one rank may not be the number one project or the next project that you recommend up.
And I'll say, when we did this, and again, Curtis was phenomenal every step of the way, getting us organized, getting everybody else to learn what we were doing. They copied us all pretty much, right?
Mm-hmm. We were all over the place, yes.
So going through all that, I mean, he was phenomenal with it. In picking all those things up, when we submitted for the Pot 3 money, for the first allocation, we submitted, I think, for $5 million. And the first allocation was only supposed to be about 4.3, okay, for the first 4 or 5 years. They liked our project so much and they saw we were in tune to getting this done that they gave us the full allocation. Even when we had the Cruise Lake money put in place, they didn't make us pull that money back either. They give us that money up front too, ahead of everybody else. So there's only 3 counties even close to the allocations we've got so far. Yeah. So because of our Curtis's great presentation and Pam's following up, with all that together, they really respect what we're doing with this every step of the way.
Squeaky wheel gets the grease.
It helps. No, done a phenomenal job. So
good. All right. We'll go back over here.
Okay, so do you have any questions on the materials that are in front of you, or is there?
No, very nice overview. Thank you.
Thank you.
And all this is online, so everybody can look at as well to go dig out for further.
It will be. It's not yet. It will be.
Well,
it is.
You can still find.
Sorry, Curtis.
That's all right.
So if you go to the county website, you type in Restore Act, it's going to bring you to a bunch of different links and everything else. But it'll take you to one of the pages that it will take you to. It was archived under the old version of the web, but it will take you there. It's Restore Act documents. You go there. Everything is listed down in there because everything has to be vetted through the public. This is a public process. You guys are a public forum composed of one commissioner and all public members. So that was also a driving factor in why we did what we did, because when we went to Treasury and we wanted to get approved, we had to show that we were doing it with public input. We had cities of Port Richey here, city of Newport Richey here. They both got projects, as you saw up there. We had a couple private members that came in because we were looking at, but it was a public process. It still is a public process. So those documents are available on that website. It just takes a little hunting to get them. It's not a link right off the front page, unfortunately. Not anymore.
And I will say
there is a link on the front page, Restore Advisory Committee link, that I am working with our IT department to update that. So I will make sure that this information is there as well.
And I'll say, you know, as we knew, this process has evolved quite a bit. And Pam, when you were speaking at the last meeting, you really said some things that really kind of opened up the latest parts in the process that have shifted or come to a strong focus that we didn't know how much it would be. But that public input, when Pam said what they look for, they want to see public input. Not whether they just had a meeting or not, but what's the public input? How does the public feel? And you heard Marshall Amana, she heard that. She went to work and to get those 396 signatures. A few others come in, I think we're from Westport as well, that come in to say, hey, we want to get this done. So that public input is something they're going to look at. It's going to help it go through the process every step of the way. And I think when we get to the point of, we've already submitted, so we think we're in good shape for the 1.4 million already, but seeing that public input is definitely giving Pam leverage to say, look, this is what the people want.
And that's exactly right. That's what the Treasury is looking for, and that's what the Restore Council is looking for. They want to know how the public feels about these projects that we're doing.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Kristen.
So when there was that issue with the city of Port Richey and they didn't want to go ahead when the new members came into council and they didn't want to go ahead and do the original plan that Tom and the ex-city manager, Tom O'Neill, the one that he presented to us, which included the waterfront park, the bat cave and all that stuff. What's going to happen with that? Because I read something in the paper that they were even going to use their money that they received from the FWC for their boat ramp, that they were going to put that in with that too. And I just want to make sure that they get their boat ramp fixed with their boat ramp money. You don't, use the Restore Act money for, other reasons.
I don't want to dig up a whole lot of history with that. The original project had, as you recall, it was improvements to Waterfront Park, to put in a boat ramp there, to do parking in there, to redo the streetscaping in there, and to do the portions of the dredge. And what basically ended up happening with this project is it shrunk because of the scope. You had scope shrink on it, basically because of the amount of funding that was there. But a couple other factors too, including an FCT agreement with Waterfront Park, and there were some other factors there, but the scope shrunk. Okay, and the scope shrunk to the point where when we notified Treasury that the scope had shrunk to that point, they're like, well, this isn't the project anymore that you submitted. We're going to hold the money for you, but you're going to need to reapply for the project. So they're reapplying for the project. And my understanding is only dredge now is what they're applying for. And it's going to go up, and Treasury's not going to have a problem with that. It's going to go through the process, and they're going to go through the review process, and I'm hoping to see a grant issued with that. As far as the boat ramp goes, there is no money in the Restore Council for the boat ramp. The boat ramp actually comes from a funding called the Florida Boaters Improvement Program. That's your tax dollars that we get from when you buy those little stickers to stick on the side of your boat every year. That's where that money comes from, is those fees right there. So that money then gets turned around, and as long as we're putting it into motorized vessel launches, we can do things like fix boat ramps and everything else. There's been some discussions, but I don't know of anything that's progressed right now that we're actually going to go in and redo the boat ramp with FBIP funds, but that's not really for this forum. But it's not Restore, I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, they already received the money years ago from FWC, and they still haven't done it. And I was just questioning it, but how did they do their first part of their dredge? They just took it out of their own budget?
Yes, that was not out of Restore. So one of the requirements that we had on them for the first grant was they had to provide a certain amount of matching funds, right? And whether that's in kind or whether that was doing work or actually contributing to the project. Well, they did their in-fund match by doing that initial dredge, because that dredge was required for that one canal in order to have a place to take the spoils and let them sit. So that was their match. So they've met their match obligation. We're not, as far as I know, we're not reinstituting that match obligation. I can't speak to that grant because I didn't do the application on it, but that's where they were when we left off with that.
Thank you for the answer.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channels Dredge project update.
Hey, this is George. I can give you the update for the project.
All right, George.
So basically what's happening is that we are going forward with the project and getting it ready for the BCC. It's going to be presented at the May 18th BCC meeting. We'll be using a Town of Jupiter piggyback contract and to get the project going. So what they'll be doing is the final engineering and permitting project. So it'll be on May 18th. And the second thing is that last time we discussed about adding back Gulf Harbors and Gulf Landing back into the study. What I've been told was that it could be added during the BCC meeting because right now we're not authorized to make any changes to the previous commission agreement. So that's what that. And the second thing is that we're also working on getting an RSQ for getting additional consultants for the county. So we're working with purchasing on that. Also, once that's done, we wouldn't have to do any piggyback contracts to get a future dredging a coastal engineering project. Only one thing is that if you're using RSQ, the design costs have to be less than $500,000 and the construction costs has to be less than $4 million. So once we get the RSQ done, we'll have a set of consultants specialized with coastal engineering that we can work on. And the second thing we're working on is that Public Works is currently hiring a engineer. It's going to be focused completely on coastal engineering. So we are doing the interview process that. So once that's completed, we'll have one person completely dedicated for dredging projects. So we can get more of these projects going on.
All right, so to be clear, go back to so May 18th, an item's going to come before the board to look at piggybacking a contract from Jupiter where they're going to look at an RSQ.
So the May 18th would be the Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel project. So that project will be done by EPA. Those are the folks who did the first phase of the project. So they'll be doing the final engineering and permitting. So we're still going to be using another piggyback contract, and that piggyback contract would be from the Town of Jupiter. And we are scheduling the agenda and the task code and everything for the May 18th BCC meeting.
Okay, and do we have an anticipation what that number was going to cost?
Yeah, the cost was going to be $497,000.
Okay, and what that does is that lets them study all the channels that are in there, all the dredging that's going to be done, so they can do all the testing to be able to make a submittal, quantities, et cetera, what this dredge is going to be, that someone's going to be able to go, then take that document and then go bid on it.
Exactly. So it includes getting a permit too. Permitting, final estimate, a design. It also includes where you're going to dispose the material, and also includes bidding assistance too. So they'll provide all that for that amount of money.
All right, and was that money coming from the Restore Committee, or is it goes?
It's actually going to come initially from general funds.
Okay.
And after that, we're going to decide after that how we're going to reproportion. So it's going to be Restore partially, and partially is going to be MSPU.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, the Restore money is that $1.4 million we were talking about that was reallocated from the Cruise Lake project?
Yes, yeah.
That 1.4 million is the money that was, or the application that was approved by the Gulf Consortium to go to the Restore Council at the Gulf Consortium's meeting last week. It is now with the Restore Council. They are reviewing it, their final review. They've seen it before. I don't anticipate any issues, and we should be approved for the money by the end of April. That 1.4 million is for construction only. It's not for engineering, permitting and engineering.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah. Commissioner Starkey.
I'm all for dredging, but I don't recall voting on it here. Maybe I missed it. And did the county commission vote on it? Using that money in that way? Yes. We did. I missed it. When did we vote on it?
It was quite a while ago. It was quite a while ago.
I think it was October. Here?
Yes.
Remember that the restore meeting in October?
And it was brought in front of the BOCC also.
Okay.
I have to get the dates for you, but I
don't remember voting on it.
Yeah, I wonder if
Yeah,
I
the
could, as a new member, if I could ask a couple questions.
I wish you would.
I'm pretty lost on quite a bit of this already.
Okay.
The first thing is, where can we find a description of these projects? I mean, I live in Gulf Harbors. I think I know what's going on. I have no clue what this project actually looks like in writing. Where do I find that?
I'm not sure if anything is out there that, but I can send something to you, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing
Dredge had some of the pictures of where the, right, George?
Yeah,
So George,
the project was presented at the board for the first phase of it. So at that time, we had all the maps and everything already presented.
So maybe you
Yeah,
can send a link to all the board members so they can refresh themselves.
Well,
and the
and-
members
Okay,
can see
we
it.
can do that, yeah.
Sir, I have been watching this pretty closely, and I think what's happening here is what the board voted on was the initial $100,000 to be spent to try to understand the scope of dredging needed. I don't know that any project was ever voted on and has been written yet, because we still don't know what it was that $100,000 piggyback contract found.
And that was presented to the
Right.
BCC. And I can send that to you. That GBA study,
Yeah.
we can share that with you.
Yeah, and I don't want to misspeak because sometimes, Skip,
I'm sorry?
sometimes the board will have it directly come to them instead of this committee. Like when the Port Richie, when that final approval was done, it didn't come back to this committee.
Well, and
They just took it and then board went with it from there.
I did see the however many page, 400 page report that came back. I didn't know that anyone had written a project from that 400 page report. I've read most of it and I understand what they're saying, but I think somebody needs to really look at what we're going to make a project out of there, because there's a lot of stuff there that doesn't need doing or whatever.
Yeah, that's the project's going to be on May 18th is that project that's going to come out of that report. So that's the continuation of the first part of the project.
So we're going to spend another $400,000 to figure out the scope of the project.
It's not the scope,
right?
No.
That you could, and it's like, Skip, because initially I didn't know we had to do this either. I found out after at some meeting, et cetera, when we had gone through and had the report in, thought we were going to have enough when we had the report done to go out to bid. And when we submitted, I figured we're good to go. And I only found out after even a public meeting at Gulf Harbors, maybe matter of fact at the landings, I think, Nick, when I said we're going to be good to go real quick. And I found out after that meeting we had publicly that we have to go through the study that's going to go through all the channels, through all the borings, all the measuring quantities, et cetera, was all going to be put in play that had to go back out. So I think that's what's coming before the board for the first time.
Okay.
But once we get that, then you can go out to bid and know what you're going to get.
Can I help?
Good.
Okay, so first off, the projects for pot 3 are in what we call the state expenditure plan. Those are publicly published. That's probably that 400-page report maybe that you're talking about. I don't know if we're talking about the same thing, but when you look in there, there's Pasco section and there's a description for each individual project that we've approved that's part of that state expenditure plan. The proposed state expenditure plan that you're talking about, the 1.4 million, has not been approved yet. It should be publicly available. We can certainly make that publicly available to everybody so you can see what the scope of that 1.4 million. As far as dredging goes, I am actively involved in, when you looked at that Key Vista project, I'm actively involved. I'm the project manager for that one. Before you do a dredge, you have to go out there, you have to do studies on that particular channel. You have to go out there and you have to do seagrass studies. You have to go out there and you have to do borings because you don't know if you got to take the sediment and put it up on the shore, or you can take the sediment, it gets contaminated, and you got to take it off to a landfill, a lined landfill, by the way. Always a good point to remember. But there are certain requirements. So you have to go out there to do that for the permitting. George, am I misspeaking here?
No, you're not. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So that's why that's what that $500,000 is going to do, is it's going to get you the ability to get that permit. And part of getting that permit is going out there and doing those core samples and doing those engineered studies so you can determine how much waste or how much of the sediment you're going to take out and everything else. So it's a fairly hefty study that has to happen with that. Bathymetric and everything else.
I guess one of the reasons I was invited to join this is my background.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you that the commissioner spent $100,000 to get those answers. That study does in fact tell you the seagrass issue, the contamination issue, the depth of dug. It even shows the profiles. So I'm a little confused at why we need to now do it again for 4 times the amount.
Well,
So we're not doing, what we're going to do with this project is get the final engineering drawings and also get the permits. And also negotiate where we're going to do the mitigation for the seagrass and things like that. And also doing more detailed analysis of the soil samples and figuring out where to dispose of it, etc. So that's one of the main reasons for this additional cost. The first part was just the preliminary engineering cost, and that's been completed. And that did not include getting a permit or the designs for the channels.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to discuss this again because I think we would have had a discussion at the board about what we were going to do in this dredge if it had come to the board to vote to spend the 1.4 million on a dredge plan.
this did come before the board.
Did we discuss it?
The 1.4? Yeah.
Okay, so the vote in front of the restore committee will be in the minutes? And you said it was in October? So it'll be in the November minutes?
Should be.
Okay,
I recall it in October for some reason.
Do you remember, Skip, us voting on it? Because we
No, ma'am.
didn't go to harbors and we had discussions that there were some areas in there that we didn't think should be in there. It would just be a waste of money and be spending more than we need to. And we didn't, and we certainly plan on, everyone pitching in on this. And we didn't want to pitch in places to where it was on that dredge list if it didn't affect the navigability, of the area. So I don't remember ever getting to have that discussion. Do you, Skip?
No, ma'am.
No.
I have the meeting minutes from December 3rd meeting,
Okay.
where George did do a presentation on the findings from the GBA study of the Gulf Harbors and Hudson Channel. I
And then it
think,
went to the county commission?
yes, I believe it went.
Was it like just in a consent agenda?
It might have gone to the,
Wiley presented, I believe, is what I recall. There was an item, I don't recall exactly how it went, but I do know he on that shift of the cruise lake money, and there was a vote.
Okay, well, I'd sure like to see what the map looks like.
I was somebody.
Well, it's not just,
An agenda item.
it's not just Gulf Harbors. It's
No,
Hudson.
I know, but I don't know all the other areas, but I know our area. And I know we as a community felt there were areas in that map that didn't need to be. Right? That's my last recollection.
also at the December 3rd Restore Committee meeting, I informed you that the amendment to the SEP for the reappropriation of the 1.4 million was, that was us. Yep. We discussed that December 3rd. I can send you these minutes. Mr. Starkey, if you'd like them here.
It says I was here, or maybe I was online, but I don't.
Yes. I don't.
I'd be very interested to see what it is we're talking about, because I think we can still refine that list a little bit.
George, do you have the map?
Yeah.
The map would be very helpful.
Yeah, I could show the map. Hold on a second. Let me see if I could bring that up.
While he's pulling it up, one of the things they talked about was the land, not the landings, but one part of Seaforest pulled out and then wanted to get back in, right?
Excuse me.
Okay.
Is it Sea Forest or the woodlands that pulled?
Well, it was the woodland areas, what a lot of people call a lot of people refer to the woodlands as the Sea Forest area. And because some of the channels are shared between the woodlands and Gulf Landings, there was a little bit of discrepancy there between them. Gulf Landings has always wanted the dredging.
Yeah, the woodlands had pulled out because I think they're working with you, right? Or
Right.
with Gator anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
My understanding, they've already contracted to do a portion of that channel.
that's my understanding too. So we're trying to help them get some funding on the county end between one source and another, but this wasn't going to work because it didn't go through that same process. But that's probably what he's going to be pulling up as well, taking a look at that, because that was kind of like pulled out because it didn't want it in there. And then they said, well, maybe we do, but we're still working the details out with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see the map?
Picture. Yeah. That's the original map that
Yeah.
they ascertained
Yeah.
really didn't need to be done.
Yeah, so we'll be using the same map for the study because we did use the same map for the first phase of it. So we'll be using this map for the, yeah.
That is not.
So like not all that channel needs to be dredged.
Yeah, there won't be dredging.
And we know that. That's what the
Yeah.
study to follow up on is, to get the actual quantities, what's coming out of where. So it marks off everything that's going to be in.
Spending all that much, though, maybe we could save some money if we go ahead and tell them parts they don't need to spend.
I know George worked real hard on them. As far as the numbers go.
When you
Yeah.
go to environmental, they want to know. They're not going to give you the permits unless you know.
But I think, Commissioner Stark, I think what you're talking about is like at the bottom of Florimar, that thing's wide open, that doesn't need to be touched. Pretty much. Top seal probably, or that bottom part of the screen, most of that's gonna be pretty good as well.
From
Yeah, there
the
won't be,
seawall-
yeah.
From the
You're
seawall
right.
in,
Yeah,
from the seawall in, the north and south channel don't need to be touched.
but there's just a couple of spots there, right?
From that last row, probably South Shore, right? Or is that West Shore?
Yeah, West Shore.
So Skip, one of the things we did with the Hudson area, and I think we did it with the landings too, with everybody, pretty much everyone coming. We looked at what needed to be done, where people had prop cars, where the mound might be in the middle of the channel. I'm gonna say, hey Pam, and Nick, you can do the same now. You can't do it together because we'll talk about sunshine later on because we're bound by sunshine. But they can talk to GBA as they go further and say, look, here's what we need, here's what we don't need, and kind of like, as they go through the study to kind of shorten up, it may help a bit. I don't know if it's gonna, well, and they get to what, May 18th is gonna come before the board?
Yeah.
So maybe they can start that conversation with them now to find out, all right, what do we really need to look at and what don't we need to look at? And if that shortens up the scope and shortens up the price, what's good? Just like we shortened up what really need to be looked at up at Hudson too. And Hudson, all the internal channels were marked off. There was only like 4 spots in the whole thing that were gonna be looked at. The rest of it was just the 2 major ones going out.
I think if you took the cost of the dredge, let's just say on the south channel there, and you assessed all the people that will benefit, that would probably fail. Because everyone knows they don't need to pay, that's not a good investment of their money because it's navigable. But if you just had that little piece and then you assessed everybody,
I was gonna say, so isn't it just like one piece on the southern channel that needs to be done?
No, it's only from and actually the study pointed out some interesting things. From the red line, which is the seawall, basically in this picture, on the outside edge of Gulf Harbors, the only places that they drew cross sections that showed that there was anything at all were the two outer sections going out to the Gulf of Mexico. That's where in fact, the movement of the sands over time have filled in. The north and south channels themselves coming straight in are very, very deep, all the way in. And then when you get to what's very often called the Green Key Channel that goes over to his from the yacht club there, all the way across, there are a few trouble spots, a couple of which are already under that contract with the Woodlands. And then there are some over here in Mr. Mudry's area that are also badly silted in that need to be cleaned up. But when we start a study, I don't know how we can come up with a $400,000 number to study these few small areas in here. Now, I know that Hudson has a lot more issue. There's going to be some cost up there. But certainly, this all doesn't need to be restudied because those folks did the core samples and they know where the contamination is and they did the seagrass studies and whatever, so we can eliminate huge pieces of it.
Well, and I'll tell you, Skip, one of the things, and by the way, thank you both for applying to be on the committee with us, because we really, I think, Catherine, you'll agree, it was a great, you're a great addition to the team, especially your expertise with this one coming up. So I'm going to recommend that maybe, Pam, we have George, Pam, and you got to do 2 separate meetings and get it.
We're not allowed to talk.
You can't talk anymore about any of this stuff. So do like two meetings with this. I mean, the public meeting, we obviously were talking, but individually, you guys can't be in a meeting together to go through it. But I think it would be good to go take a look at, just like we did up in Hudson, to go isolate this stuff here. Let's go see what needs to be done. And if that enables us to bring that number down, great. But I want to make sure we get it right and get it right before it even hits the board on May 18th.
What's under contract with the Woodlands is this area here and this area.
Matter of fact, maybe even get Deborah Leone in the meeting if you have to.
We're doing the bad corner.
Is Deborah Leone from the Woodlands? She can be in the meeting with both of these guys to make sure that she sees what's going on too.
Just this area here and this area here.
Coming in back.
Coming in back, nothing up in here.
You want to make a point of something that not all the areas that are shown as red will be dredging. Some of the areas don't need to be dredged. It's just to show for permitting purposes the project area. So not all those areas are being dredged.
But I think with maybe Skip's expertise, we can look at actually what needs to be done specifically, and if that shortens what the scope should have been, then so be it.
Okay,
we can save some money, we'll save some money. But it'll give them a chance to go talk and justify what they're doing and what the costs are going to be. And we find a way to save some money, great.
All right.
So the bottom part of the Hudson area?
Hudson area, yeah.
So you see the 4 circles in the Hudson area on the lower part of the screen? Those 4 circles? And that whole area from down below need to get looked at, but we just isolated those areas right there.
I forgot to put my contacts in that for, so why can't I see?
Now, George, looks like you're missing a scope of the project there, though.
What was that? Which one?
All right, so we're where it says Signal Cove, going straight up.
Yeah.
I think we're supposed to be making that connection alongside the rough area, but that's kind of what we is with where it's squiggly line. It's not to show the specific
going north, right?
Channel that was there.
Yeah, because what happened is that we talked about this last time with GBA. Because they're saying that they couldn't find any record of any previous channel over there, and it'll be next to impossible to get that permitted.
Well, I'm going to say, hang on a second. Yeah. With what the residents have said out there, that's how the access used to be. It didn't used to be like 12 and marker 12, 13, which is further out, is where we're going to do a connection closer to the center part. But along the green area that's inside the channel that's there, can you run your finger so the board members can see it? Will it show up?
Is that area?
So right at that, see where your hand is right there. No, not right there. Now go to your right. Go to your right a little bit. Right alongside that green area. That whole green area right there is where the boats, everyone from Signal Cove and Leisure Beach, they used to connect alongside there, and then they would pick out that channel to the north and then go out to the side from there.
You're talking about this channel here. Okay.
It's no, not the channel.
All right.
This is at the, as Patty showed, it's along that,
Mangrove.
it's a mangrove.
The mangroves, okay.
Area, exactly. Now, Curtis, what you are going to do down in Bailey's Bluff, it's the same type of thing right there. And that's where I think you can use that soils displacement, going right up alongside there to spray it right over and just bring that back to what it used to be, is that used to be the channel that we'd use to access out.
What's that red line to the right of Pleasure Island?
Looks like it goes back into.
Is that the,
Yeah.
is that where the Walmart is? I mean, across from the Walmart?
Yeah, there was some residents over there requested, and we added it as part of the change order last time.
That was,
I
I'll tell you,
can't recall the name of.
Is that the same channel DOT dredged out or no?
No, I don't think so. I think there's a this
To the south?
that requested it. I can't recall the name of the street.
Okay.
So we added that during the last change order. We added the portion of it.
All right. So like all those channels are not getting dredged? They're not even getting looked at then, correct?
The other, yeah. Others
No
are
one
not
said
being-
anything. We had everybody in the whole community say what needs to be dredged. Those
Yep.
4 areas came up, and now these 4 areas come up, and that one there.
Yep.
And the one
So
that's
that's
out
one.
here to the left on Pleasure Channel of the
This area, right?
lower one
Okay.
way out. Yeah, that if you add that area right there, I think you can do soil displacement just like Bailey's Bluff. Easy to permit, and you put the spoils right out to the side.
Okay.
That's the connection, because we know we can't get marker 12, 13. That'll take too much, so we took that off the line, which is good. But that's the thing that we told them we're gonna add in, was right there.
This area north side. Okay. So let me look
Just
into that
alongside
and
the
out.
outside.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, because there's commercial businesses that access that from 19. There's Source One and Pelican.
Yeah.
Those one, okay?
They're, yeah.
All right. All right, so any other thoughts? All right, so Pam, you can set the meetings up and they can go from there and just make sure we get it all the right way.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Next thing, I guess, Pam, you got this support letter petition from the Pasco County coastal residents, just kind of, again, resulting of the meeting that we talked about, how Treasury said.
Yes, again, I do have those. I did not make a copy of them because as Marcia said in the beginning of the meeting, there's like, I don't know, 30 some odd pages or something, isn't there? For the petition.
Okay, maybe you just send it to everybody on, maybe send it electronically to everybody?
I can send it to you if you would like it, yes.
Okay. I think, matter of fact, all the agenda items you got before us here, I think electronically would be great, so we'll have that and you guys can print it up. All right.
Project
Okay.
funding update, we pretty much covered that with the handouts that I gave you and in the presentation.
Okay. All right. Now, one thing that come up, so any other discussion points on these?
No, sir.
All right. Let me bring something up that I think would be good that you brought up today that I thought was a little bit more enlightening, especially as things have moved along in the past few years. On the Pod 2 money, we've talked a lot of times about doing a septic to sewer program up and down the coast. It is part of DEP's strategic plan to get it done. I know Hernando and Citrus did really good getting state funding, but now the funding's dried up. If that's part of their plan, I think we should let's go take ours up and down. I mean, Elfers and Sea Pines are like 2 great ones to get right in. I think Set and Man is probably another one. There's probably a few along the way. Let's go look up and down the coast and let's go get a presentation before us. And then we can go look at making a recommendation to go to the state. Maybe we can get someone from the state down here to take a look at it with us to make sure we're going along their line. And that's like bonus money that's out there. I mean, pot 3 we're going to get, pot 1 we're going to get. This is competitive bonus money that's out there. And I think with the state and resiliency that's out there, all the conversation that's being told, I think septic to sewer along the coast is a big winner for us. We might be the first one to do it. And I'll tell you, don't feel bad about getting it, because I brought this up probably, would you say, Curtis and Pam, about 8 to 10 times at the council? At the consortium, to try to get them all together, and nobody's come forward to team with us. So I say, let's just go try to get it all. No?
As far as the DEP money, the reason why Citrus and Hernando were able to do these projects is because the sewers the septic systems that they were replacing were impacting springs. We don't have that issue yet.
No, but the top corner of our county is in that spring shed, because I went to that school fund meeting, Commissioner Oakley, and was hoping he would bring some of that money back to us.
Right.
Because that watershed, that spring shed, whatever you call it.
Right.
We do have a portion of it.
The
Right.
watershed,
We do.
yeah.
The Arapika area, yes.
Did you get any money?
No, because they're not really looking at that spring shed as hard as they are the ones north. That's not to say we can't apply for it. They may look at it, and as long, like I said before earlier, if it fits into their comprehensive plan, we may,
apply.
So we should, what we should also do probably is like think a little bit more about what we're gonna do with our spoils, and maybe the Department of the Interior could give us some of their money so that we could save our islands or build more barrier islands. You know, Alan Rose, he always talks about.
I'm a big fan of doing those barrier islands if you can. It's a longer term project, but if that's something we can bring forward too, I'm happy to go look at that too, because that may be something we can get. They say we're the only county that hasn't gone to the Army Corps to get any sands.
I mean, we could just start with just moving our sand back at Anclote, because I mean, every map that you have out there now is wrong.
Yeah.
Anclote, yeah. Well,
The sandbar in Ankle Key.
Yeah.
And one of the things I will add in here, sir, except for the north and south channel, if you look at that study, that 400-page study, especially over in the Gulf Landings area, not sand they're going to be dredging. In fact, there is some contamination over there too. And so that sort of stuff is not anything that we're going to be able to use back in the water. In fact, the state's not going to let us put it back in the water anywhere or near the water. There's some pretty mucky areas over there underneath the canals. Now, following along with what you said, sir, the last 4 years, we've had to close the Gulf Harbors Beach and the Hudson Beach due to fecal coliform numbers. I don't know if the county has done any studies yet, but fecal coliform numbers don't come from fish. So there's some reason why suddenly we're having more and more and more sewage problems. And again, the waters around Hudson Beach and in Gulf Landings and even into Gulf Harbors are very cloudy in the summertime and are growing a lot more bacteria or green, if you will. They're not as clear as they were years ago. We probably can do something to tie this together to go for that money.
Yeah, I tell you, we tried to get Nye Florida, who does those systems up there, and trying to get them out. Try to get them to the table to buy them. It looks like they're being sold again to another company. I don't know if we get any. It doesn't look like they'll sell it to the county again. But that area up there is interesting. For the past 6 months, the numbers have been really good. Once the rains come in again, is when the numbers are going to go up again. And they were extremely, higher than they've ever been this past summer. So they definitely there's an issue out there. One of the things we're trying to do at Hudson Beach is to put that living seawall around it to kind of like take that area and just kind of cover it over maybe these dredge spoils to go kind of create a beach right there. And then get people swimming away from that channel and now swimming out front in the fresh water. That may help a little bit, but again, there's definitely an issue out there, and who knows where it's all coming from.
Mobile home parks, probably, right?
It could be some of that. It could be just the runoff from rainwater too. But it's definitely we worked on getting a study from DEP to go out there and go do it. It was like a $12,000 we needed. First we were going to get, then we ended up not getting it. And then they wanted to go spend like 120 grand, and then they definitely weren't going to give us any money, even though they wanted to see it get done. So it was, they were like moving the goalposts every step of the way for us.
Yeah.
Yes.
As far as Gulf Harbors goes, and I haven't really talked about this publicly, maybe we'll talk about it at the board meeting, but, as you know, in Gulf Harbors, and I guess Gulf Woodlands, I don't know if Gulf Woodlands is, are they on Lendrick as well?
Yes.
They're Lindrick, right?
Okay, so old system, I don't think they ever put any of the money into fixing that system. Lot of leakage going on, and which I think is what's going on out there at the beach from our old sewer system, because we're not septic, we're sewer. And there's so much salt water going into the pipes that it's causing a problem at the treatment center that Newport Richie has. So that was my legislative request, was to get some money to go towards that fixing of those pipes. It's in our legislative ask package as going to help purchase Lendrick, but really that money is to go, we would use it to immediately start fixing those pipes and stop leaking into the waters around us. I was able to get, it didn't get heard in any committee, but I'm friends with someone who's powerful. It was not someone from our county. But this person got us a placeholder. So I just have to work in the House, maybe helping with Amber, because you won't get funding if you're not heard. So we got in on the Senate side, we're not in on the House side. But at this time now, the most we could get is 1.9 million towards the fix, but it's better than nothing. So
That's a great chunk.
hopefully you're still alive to get some money. I was going for 3.8. They didn't hear anything that was over $1 million in the water pot of money. The members were capped at that. So anyway, so we have hope. We're still alive to try and get some money to help fix that. Otherwise, as you know, we're buying these private utilities. Lindrick's next, and then we have to get the money to fix it. But I think that's where that water quality issues. Sewer system.
As I say, with Nye Florida up in Hudson, we had them go check their pipes, and that's what we're going to do. The next study was going to go check all their pipes, because they told us, well, we did this, but we're not sure if what was really done.
Last year, George, I don't know if George worked on it, or someone came in and sleeved, you remember, sleeved parts of Florimar to stop some of the leaking. And they're doing that on the main road, but not all the, it's the connection from the house to the street. They're not checking. I don't think they're checking every single house. I think they're checking the main ones.
Well, that would be the residents' responsibility.
And no resident is digging out their lines.
Right.
And check to see if over 20 years if there's been a shift, right? The old pipes, and then getting all that going in, so.
And I'd say down in St. Pete, that was a big problem down there that they really wanted to go after and address, because those connections were like everywhere. And then how do we get everything done? Because if you just do one part of the pipe, you don't finish the whole pipe, you're still going to get the same amount of leakage, or that leakage is going to happen.
Well, and the other problem we have in both of these communities is the fact that the storm sewers were built in the 70s, and they do not have the vaults to collect the storm water. And so anything that washes off the street, any fertilizers on the lawn, any dog manure, anything that washes in is going right into the canals and floating right out. So it's raising the bacterial level huge. Now, I'm surprised that the county has been able to get away with it because, for example, Pensacola, they got their whole stormwater system shut down a few years back because they didn't have it, and it's a DEP requirement. So we may be able to feed that into this.
When I was with Deborah Leone, we went to look in the Woodlands area, and the first place she took me was down by the condos coming in off Marine Parkway. Went down to one of the side streets that were right there. The roadway takes a direct access right to the channel.
Every one of them.
No filter, nothing.
Yeah, every one of them.
All coming in. That's just, and it would be so easy to put even just some type of like inverted pipe, you might say, just kind of hold it and just let it treat itself and then let it pop over and go. But just like straight release. So yeah, that's just something definitely got changed.
Yeah, many of them.
Yeah, I mean, she showed me before, but that was the first one. It's like, well, if this is the trend, and that's what made me think too, to try to get stormwater money, because if it's all silt from the roadway coming into the channels, and those, Nick, we've seen your neighborhood,
Right.
all over the place. That's where the biggest problem areas are. Well, it's got to be stormwater. Where's that coming from? So. Okay. Well, that covers all the topics. Anyone else want to add anything else for the meeting?
Well, I did want to say, I'm so excited that CERN is on the list.
What is?
CERN.
Yeah.
Yes, to 2030, but we'll be here before we know it.
Did you, in your explanation, did you tell them what CERN is?
Well, no, I didn't break down each one of the projects, but I can provide you with an explanation.
Yeah.
You know what? Let me ask a question about that too. I'm glad you brought that up. Looking at pot 4 and 5, I think pot 4 has the educational component to it. Maybe it's 5?
5.
Maybe it's 5. Right. One of the last 2 pots.
Yeah, I think 5.
And I'm just wondering, maybe over time that between one of these colleges that they have reached out to school systems, and I think ours is pretty well advanced, maybe they would work where we could do some of the work for them. Has anyone tried that up and down those colleges?
I don't know that anybody has. Pot 5 is being run by the Marine Biology Center that's down at USF St. Pete. That area down there. I can't think of the guy's name, but I've met him a couple times.
It's the Florida Institute of Oceanography.
Yes, it's right down there near USF St. Pete, same area. FWC has an office there and everything else. That's the person that's running that whole program through. I don't know of anybody that's gone and applied for any money there. I don't know if there's even a process for applying it if you're not a university. So,
well, Matt, maybe we just could be right under there.
That's a good Pam. I guess Pam's gonna have to figure it out.
The eligible recipients are the universities. They're all, except for one, Sanibel Captiva Conservation Foundation. All the rest are
right.
Moat Marine Laboratory. All the rest are universities.
Right. So they get the chunk of money. What I'm saying is maybe we can approach them. Maybe school board member Armstrong would get on meeting up and say, look, we've got this program up in our schools. We'd like to help you do the work you're trying to get done, kind of like a subcontractor or whatever, and just let us help you get your work done, but let us do it through our students. Maybe there's an opportunity there. I mean, it's been a few years now, so maybe now that it's established a little bit, maybe there is an opening, you know?
My recollection is this location is, so you've got the new FSU one that Ballard is running off the coast, up there, St. George Island or somewhere, the new FSU.
This is, the pot 5 is Florida Institute of Technology. That's right down there, downtown St. Pete, just south of the airport down there, that little airport.
But do you remember when they made the presentation? Is there that Mr. I can't remember his first name, so I'll just say Ballard. He was number 2 and he left to run the FSU Institute of Ocean Research.
Yeah, and when they approached us, they were going to do a partnership between the two, and but what he's talking about, Commissioner, is he's talking about the source of money and getting into that money in there, and that money is being the purse strings are owned by down the FIT, which is down at the USF St. Pete area down there, just south of those are the people that have that are distributing that money out. And maybe they're working in partnership with Mr. Mahler.
But also, didn't CERN have a freshwater component in it? If I remember right, it really went from east side of the county to all the way to the coast.
So CERN, the original approach was they wanted to put a building out at where the outlet mall basically is now out there, where 75 and 54 meet, that outlet mall out there. In that general area, they were going to put a building out there and do creek studies and everything else, and then kind of trace that water all the way through the different watersheds that it made it all the way out to the Gulf of Mexico. And they were going to work in coordination with a couple other organizations, and they were also going to do a knowledge share with a couple of institutes that were up on the peninsula and then down in the Keys. And they had a whole network that they were going to set up. And the original ask for that was approximately 20 million, I think it was when we started.
Coastal Environmental Research Center near the marine.
They were going to add a component to our Energy and Marine Center here. They were going to work out of there and work in conjunction with them. But the building itself was going to go on a creek that was going to be up by that mall, up by that outlet mall there.
And that was.
But we didn't approve the whole thing. We only approved one certain part of it for the state expenditure plan. We ended up, I think, giving them $1 million out of the state expenditure plan to start to build some of the other aspects that were smaller and were attainable on that project. I mean, what they proposed was, it was an enormous $20 million. We're going to talk to them and we're going to have communications down there. And yeah, we don't have that money anyway. So it'd be 20 million would be both pots combined and nobody else gets any funds. So
Yeah, but you pair that up with other money.
that's her job.
20 million. By the way, how's that boat coming? We still waiting on that?
It's,
School districts?
Yeah.
it's on here.
That's going
I know it's in
next.
process. I'm just wondering what's the timetable? Do we know?
I'm submitting the application next week. I've been working with,
The description of what's going on. I just did this first of our new members, and I don't remember what exactly is going on in there.
So the Energy Management Center is part of our children's education. And it's kind of like by
It's in Port
Boys
Ritchie.
State Park. It's off of Old Post Road. If you go down Bay Boulevard, kind of like by the Super Walmart there. And it's set off right by the big park. And one of the instructors there came before our board and asked, if we could help them with their oceanography and stuff, and that they would want to get a boat so they could take the kids out and they could learn more about,
Yeah, because right now they do, they do seining now, but they have to walk out to do it.
Right.
With a flat bottom boat, a pontoon boat, they could take the students out further. But also that was going to be in conjunction with building the reef, the interior reef, and putting grasses. So the students were going to also help with that project as far as planting seagrasses and helping restore that inner reef along the coast. So it was going to be two things. One, to allow the pontoon boat to go out and they can study the sea creatures a little further out. And the other part was to help with the seagrass restoration project.
Very good.
And that's the school board restoration project here? That's what you're talking about?
Right, that's what we're talking about.
The number one project there.
Right, the 120,000.
Okay.
So, but then there was
like
also on that list, the interior reef, what list, the Inshore artificial reef, Cody River, isn't that where we're planting the seagrass?
that's going to be like a snorkeling area.
Yeah, I think that's where we're restoring some
Our
seagrass.
artificial reef is going to be at what we call Cody Rocks. It's in between Hudson and the Pithlachas Cody River. Between those two entrances, there's a place that's pretty dangerous where there's a lot of large rocks in that area. So we're going to, basically the idea was to take that, make that a boater exclusion zone, get some statues and some other stuff that, some other sculpture type of stuff, put it in there. And what it'll end up being is we'll have some buoys that you'll be able to pull your boat up, tie your boat off to the buoys, jump out, and you can swim around. And it's actually a trail that you'll be able to follow and see some of the stuff, some of the life that's out there in the Gulf. So but that wasn't tied to that one. The seagrasses that you're thinking of for the school board project are for prop scarring and things like that in that
Okay, so
bayou
that's
there.
actually in that project?
Yes,
Okay,
that's a science-based project where they're going to basically grow the seagrasses and then transport the grasses out to areas and try to fix prop scarring and do oyster bar surveys. They do a lot of that stuff out there where they count oysters and things like that. So.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order? All right. We're adjourned. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.